We appreciate you coming out after lunch. Try to stay awake with us. I'll try to do the same. So today we're going to talk about basically return on investment. So tell me what works using evaluation to inform our federal funding decisions. If you happen to be in the session this morning that was with CR and Sarah and DeVetter and Pat, they talked a lot about using our DSSR plans to guide what we are funding, because you already have the plan, right? So we also need to be thinking about what we're doing and if it's working, and if we need to continue it, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm Leslie Blows. I'm one of the lovely program managers that works with Title I, 2, 4, and 5 in the Office of Federal and State Accountability, and Martha is one of my counterparts who we share kind of cubicle space with each other. So if you ever ask me a question, I'm probably going to turn to Martha and ask her the question too. And same. And then we're also joined by the lovely Anna Brink, Dr. Anna Brink. Sorry, Anna Brink, the doctor. Anna Brink.
I'm that kind of doctor though.
From Greenville County, and she's going to share the amazing things that they are doing there to look at return on investment. And as a matter of fact, Martha and I are just going to talk real fast like about some compliance things, and then we're just going to let Anna take the show from there. First, before we get started, though, I want to know who's in the room. I mean, I know who's in the room, but I would love to know how long you've been working with federal programs. So if you have been in federal programs for, this is your first year, raise your hand.
Oh,
welcome. If you've been working with federal programs for 5 and under, still learning, drinking water, still drinking from the fire hydrant. It's fine. All right. If you have been in federal programs for 5 to 10 years. If you were around when they signed ESSA into
we will find you a door prize later. I don't know what it is, but bless you.
If you're the expert that we need to be giving your name out to everybody across the state,
Go raise your hand.
And you've been in federal programs for more than 10 years, raise your hand. All right.
I'll look around.
All right, and then the last thing I want to do is I want to see just your comfort level with return on investment. So if your district is already doing a really great job of measuring return on investment on your activities that you are funding with federal funds, then give me a thumbs up. If your district is kind of like dancing around it and like kind of got your toe in the water with return on investment, you can give me a thumbs up. If you don't know what return on investment is, we're glad you're here. So glad you're here. All right, so let's talk about what we're going to do today. So we're going to talk about what the requirements are based on the law for your federal programs. Then we're going to talk about what the return on investment mindset. And then the bulk of the program, and why you're here probably, is Anna. She's going to share some amazing resources for you. We did this presentation at the national conference in Denver, and we heard a lot about it. But the biggest thing that we heard was, "Oh my God, she's giving out resources." So there are resources that will be shared for you all to take back to your districts. Okay. It's you. It's Martha.
All right, great. Yes, I'm Martha Walker. I see a lot of familiar faces in here. And for those of you who didn't raise your hand about knowing anything for ROI, that's why we're here. We're here to learn and look at evaluation. So that's kind of like our launch pad today with those evaluation requirements. Some of you may be familiar with what the statute requires for evaluation. We're going to take a quick dive into that. before moving over to the ROI mindset. So with evaluation requirements, we're going to look at Title 2 or Title 1, 2, and 4. And we all know that compliance keeps us legal, right? We know what is required under the law for our programs, but evaluation is what helps us get better and making those determinations on what is working, what are we using our money for, what do we want to keep, change, or discontinue. So with Title I, we all know that we have to have a comprehensive needs assessment. We need to have those comprehensive school-wide plans, and then we have to have the annual review and revision of those plans. So that is a requirement under the law to have those needs and have funding to support those needs. So with Title I, that evaluation process is what needs to be annually evaluated, those school-wide. Uh-oh.
I'm the one who has bad feet, and I'm the one that just messed everything up.
Oh, okay. We'll wait for it to come back up. No, keep going. It's fine. It's fine. I don't know. Okay, what do we do?
Well, I'll keep it going.
Pull it up in your Hoover app.
Put up in your move app.
Do we need a new Jennifer, can you get Eric to bring
For those of you who have known me well long enough, I've had 4 foot surgery. I've been on
You're a
multiple
seat.
scooters, and I can't just stand. That's so I'm
All right. Well, luckily I have it printed right here as well. But yeah, it is. This is being recorded. You can replay later. But the PowerPoint is also listed in the app. So if you would like to pull it up on your computer to go along, that'd be great. Okay, so with the evaluation requirements for Title I, of course you have to annually evaluate your school-wide plans and looking at those state assessments, your student performance data, and then of course the perception data. So with that continuous improvement, you have to revise your plan based on student needs and the results of your evaluations. Okay. So with Title II, you must also use the data to continuously update and improve your Title II activities. And the statute does not specify exact data, but encourages you to use a variety of data to include the student data, looking at those assessments reflecting well-being, student outcomes, or preparedness, data measuring the effectiveness of class size in Title II, if you have those within your program.
If you could act it out for us, Martha, that'd be great.
Recruitment and retention data. Trends related to your recruitment and your retention is what you're doing working. Are you bringing in those teachers? And a lot of this Title II talk is going to be continued in an evaluation with Jennifer Rhodes' presentation tomorrow. So highly recommend going to that one as well. Looking at that survey data, evaluation data with the educator evaluations and the school leader evaluations. And then, of course, teacher equity. And that would all be within Title II. Okay, so Title IV, this is my specialty. So I'm the state contact. If you ever have questions about Title IV, I would love to assist you with your Title IV plan. But with Title IV, keyword here is LEA's application must include. When the law says that, must include, we have to make sure that we have objectives tied to those intended outcomes. I'll just wait.
Hey, you're ready. Your technology here.
Don't get your hopes up. Oh, the cord snap. BRB.
Okay. Until then, Martha. Wow. But BRB.
Yeah.
Don't make any promises you can't keep, Anna. Here we go. That's in that one. Beat the countdown.
Like Grable County's buying up.
Okay, I'm going to keep talking. Okay. But with Title IV, yes, you must have those objectives and outcomes. You have to be, you are required as a district to evaluate those outcomes and those objectives. So it's really important that you do have an understanding of the logic models that you create, that you are monitoring those logic models and evaluating your outcomes as a result of creating those logic models. As you are probably well aware, you have your Title IV survey. So you just did your Title IV fiscal year 24 survey, and that is where you're reporting on this data, that piece of evaluation where you're utilizing what you developed within that logic model. Okay, so of course that is for continuous improvement, and ROI plays into this, right? We're good?
Going.
Oh, okay. I keep thinking it's going to pop up. So you have to periodically evaluate those activities based on your set objectives and outcomes. Make sure that you have performance monitoring and rigorous evaluations.
This is impossible, huh?
What is ROI?
No, it was just a cartoon.
Maybe we should take a commercial break.
ROI is when you have those outcomes and you're looking at your investment and determining if those investments are working, what you need to continue, what you need to scale, what you need to change, and maybe discontinue. So, for example, an outcome may be academic achievement, scores improved, improved school climate, student engagement or teacher retention, and then, of course, your investment with that. Those federal funds, staff time, PD hours, technology, materials, and that sort of thing. Right, yeah. So, for example, let's say you had $50,000 in Title II funds, and you spent this on teacher coaching. Return on investment would look like whether teacher performance improved, student learning outcomes increased, and then if the district got sufficient value for its investment. That is what you look at when determining return on investment for your funding. So you look at that baseline. Hey. That is not it.
I think that's our presentation, though. I was like, that looks familiar, but I don't think it's ours. Would you like us to present another session? I think we can do our presentation next.
In the meantime,
Is anybody using any way to track their funding? Spreadsheets count. Yes. Okay, talk to me about your spreadsheets. What do they look at?
where is it?
Do you
I mean, like,
How does she do it? We gotta do display.
And we project whether we're going to get 85% or not based on our
it wasn't yours, though. She sat down and sat
and we tell them, the salaries and benefits. We're on track, everybody's in place. This is where you are with supplies and materials and PD and all that.
How many times does that discussion go from the expenditure to what the actual data is?
There's some, we want to know when we do talk about the data, how does this impact your intervention students? And because they have interventions in their plan. So how does this impact your intervention?
Does anybody's boss ask them, why do we keep doing the same strategy? Do you have any data that supports that? I'm gonna give you an example. Class size reduction. Those are people, so it gets a little tricky, right? We don't have class size reductions in Title 1, 2. Are you measuring the return of not the person, but the strategy? And how? Anybody got any? This is the tough one. We're still in the process.
Those grade level and how those kids grew throughout the year with their interim data.
Great. So we'll go back to that in just a second. I'll show you kind of what we did with a class size reduction, which you so you get it's a little tricky when you start talking about humans, right? And positions. So now I'm gonna let Martha keep going. Why do you, Martha? Tell us why. And I'm not gonna sit back down just so y'all know because we're not. I am not breaking anything else.
I thought she was doing great. Okay. So let's talk about why we need to use return on investment in federal programs. So, well, we need to maximize the impact that we have on our limited funds. And just in case you haven't heard from finance, like our funds are going to be limited again, right? Because our census data is lower. So when that happens, we take a hit as a state, and so that could happen for you as well. So, and that's been a trend, right, for a couple years. Now, we know that some districts have seen increases, but we've seen a decrease in the past couple years from census data, as well as, who knows what they're going to do in the lovely Congress up in
Say that comes.
Sorry. Great, guys.
Funding has been approved for the next 2 years. Okay, so before y'all worry about anything.
Executive orders are fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. But for real, just things that we have to keep in mind about what we're doing with our money and making sure that we are spending our money accurately. And I think we talked about this last year as well. They're looking at how we're spending our money. And when I say they, I mean national level, state level, us. We're looking at how you're spending your money. And so make sure that when you're spending your money on things that you've got the beef behind it, right? And it's being spent to increase academic achievement. Also, we need to use it to make data-informed decisions and to strengthen our strategic planning. So once again, let's tap into that awesome session from earlier. And I don't know if you have plans for the next session, but they're doing an awesome session. CR's team is doing an awesome session on CNAs and your school renewal plans and how they connect, right? We need to also support compliance, like Martha was talking about, and transparency, as well as promoting equity and efficiency in our district. So we need to identify which programs are effectively closing those achievement gaps. Oh, okay. Yep. So here is kind of the framework and how it would look for you to do those steps. So your steps are, you're looking at your inputs. This may be super familiar for you if you're a Title IV person. So we're looking at our inputs. So you're asking yourself, like, what resources are invested? What fund, time, people, who are we looking at? And our sources could be like our budget reports or staffing records. Then you're going to look at the activities, right? So what activities are being performed? And you're looking at, program logs, attendance records, things like that. Your outputs is what is media products do you have so that could be like the students that are served, the hours that are trained, if you're doing TV. And then your outcomes is what short or long-term changes have you seen in behavior or achievement, whatever your goal is. And then the return on investment is, did the outcomes justify the investment, so the cost per outcome. So these are some questions that you could ask yourself, that you all could ask when you're looking at the data. So how many students and staff were served? What was the total cost per participant? Did the program reach the intended students or schools? Should this program be continued, scale, revise, or discontinued based on the results? When we ask better questions, we get better results. All right, so this is just a little worksheet that we put together. My assistant, co-pilot, helped us put this together for you all. So it is just some different questions that you can ask throughout the process of doing your return on investment. All right, so let's talk about the implications. So we kind of already hit this, but when we are doing return on investment evaluations, it's informing smarter spending decisions. It's helping us improve our compliance and transparency, which we already talked about. It's supporting that continuous improvement in your district. So our lovely keynote this morning talked about how they had to have tough conversations and really see what was working for them to get to where they are now. It aligns the programs with our district goals as well as our state goals, right? What our superintendent is pushing forward. And it also builds stakeholder confidence. So when we're sharing those return on investment, it helps for our school boards and our community to see that how we're spending our money is really benefiting our students. And that's something, a trend that we've seen, is that school boards are getting a lot more in the weeds with the way that the spending is being, the funding is being spent, right? They're asking those hard questions. They want to see that things are moving. So this is kind of the cycle of it. So you're going to identify those priorities and set your goals. And this can all come from where?
Strategic plan.
Strategic plan, because you're already doing this, right? You guys already doing the strategic plan? It's due in April, I think.
Yes.
Okay, so you've already done this. You've already looked at the data and determined what your goals are, right? Okay.
Yes.
You're working on it.
Someone is working on it. If it's not you, someone is.
It's already done. It may not be you, but someone in your district is doing this already. Those goals should align with how you're spending your money, because those are the goals based on the data about what you need to do to move the needle. So then you're going to plan and budget with return on investment in mind and with those goals in mind. We're going to implement those programs. We're going to track our costs. We're going to collect and analyze the data so that we can evaluate it and make adjustments for how we're spending it next year. Because our DSSRs are, what's the cycle level? They go for 5 years, right? You can tweak it, but it's a 5-year cycle. So those goals aren't like a one and done. It's something that you're working towards. And then you're going to use insights for future planning. Perfect. And this is the cycle, just in a linear way for you as well. And then this is just some additional, really down in the weeds questions that you can ask yourself for titles 1, 2, not yourself, the district, and 4 that really like hone in on what your needs are and if there is continuous improvement. And then it even gives you examples of some data points and some things to keep in mind when you are evaluating your programs. All right, without further ado, Amber.
Okay, sorry. I apologize profusely for the whole debacle that was here. So, all right, we love our State Department people. They give us all the rules. They give us all the guardrails, all the things we have to apply. Now I'm going to do some things that you can try. Let me make real clear to you that this is not an exact science. There is no one right way to do it. And that doesn't mean just because I'm going to tell you this doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. Okay? Because buzzwords, we love buzzwords in education, and ROI is one of those. It's nothing more than what you've done in the past where you have to allocate your funds. You have to see if you're getting a return, whether it's just on expenditures or not. And then you got to plan again, right? Like we have to submit those things, the comprehensive needs assessment, that amazing spreadsheet that we have to do for Title IV, where we have to list the outcomes and the this, that, and the other, okay? So y'all are doing all this stuff, And now it's just a little bit of a deeper dive. So let me be clear to you, I'm finishing year 4 in Greenville. This is the first year we've really gotten a lot of traction. Okay? We've been in the mess. So wherever you are, you can make improvements to what your next steps are. Okay? And so, if y'all ever said, I know y'all said, here's what, so what, now what? My favorite is so what. Right? So what? So what you telling me at the State Department you got to do and all this little flowchart mess? Okay, now what? Let's figure out what to do now what. So I want to tell you where we were 4 years ago. We were using compliance services, which State Department people, close your eyes. How long have y'all been around here long enough to have been able to submit basically your report card as your needs assessment?
What are you talking about? We still see that.
And get it accepted.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, that's how we were trained many years ago. So let me make sure I give our State Department a plug. We are not there anymore, thank goodness. Right? Because it did not even lead us to the water to drink from. It left us sitting on the shoreline. We didn't even have to dip our toe in. So we know that we are moving forward as a state. So when I got there, we were using compliance and ceiling. Just so y'all know, I worked in Lawrence 55, which is about this big compared to Greenville County. So I know what it's like to wear 18 bazillion hats. Okay? Just because I'm in Greenville now and wear one hat, which is much better at my age, doesn't mean I know that it can be scaled to whatever district you're in, no matter what you do and how many hats you have. We do have Title I facilitators. How many of y'all were Title I facilitators as principals in your own building? You didn't call it that, you just had to do all the stuff, right? Like I was the middle school principal when everything was doing Title I crate, I was the one that was having to upload and scan it, that's it. We do have Title I facilitators in Greenville, which is great. We have 20 Title I schools, so I can't be in 20 places at one time. So we were using them as sort of an informational conduit. We were saying, this is due this date, upload this, et cetera, et cetera. It had become widely known that they could go, and you could go and be a Title I facilitator kind of high, right? You didn't have any admin responsibilities. You were just like entering budgets, and that is not what they do anymore, thank goodness. I don't know, since none of them are here, I can say that.
I was like, but what they don't do is like extra duties as required.
No, I can't even say that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So when I came in, we're gonna fix that. When I came in, I sort of took a look around, right? Like you got to get to know a system. You know, I'm a sort of a loud sort of country bumpkin. They had to be used to me in Greenville County. What is this? What did we just hire? And that's okay. So I was like looking to see what we were doing. So here's what we got. We are doing our comprehensive needs assessments. We're turning it in. We're recycling, our plans. Our Title I facilitators and our principals at the end of every school year would give you this birthday party presentation, a PowerPoint about what they want to spend their funds on, right? It would give you the demographics of the school. They were more concerned about the background, and if you were in elementary school, it was all kind of rainbows and colorful and all this whatever spring. But it didn't say anything other than, thank you for coming. We want to pay for this person and this software and this. Okay, thank you for coming. It didn't ask, how are you evaluating? How long have you done this? Do you know that it's even working? And so that was where I was. That was fine. That's what I dealt with. So I took all of that, and I decided to start shifting the Title I facilitators a little bit, getting them to understand how to track data. If you're in a large system, you know there's data everywhere. Actually, you're a small system, doesn't matter. There's data everywhere, right? Some of you have in Greenville, we have a data management platform, but some of you have IXL data here, and map data in NWEA, and this data in this site, and trying to pull it together is difficult, right? It's time consuming. So I had them sort of shift into, let's kind of make some standardized, dip our toe in, this is what I want you to track here, okay? And so we started shifting to that continuous improvement. If you're we see charts and graphs and circles all the time, but if you're not in a continuous improvement cycle or you don't have something in your district, the State Department already has that on their website, the continuous improvement model with all the resources in it, just use that. It's already there. It's already well researched. Okay? And so then we started talking about what it looked like unattainable, okay? Because just like you all, when you started federal programs, I was a history major, okay? I made a C in finite math and never wanted to take another math class in my life. It was against the tears my first couple of years, right? Like trying to remember, I would have to Google how do I find a percentage or something, because I hadn't used that formula a long time, okay? But when you are recruiting Title I, y'all think it's funny, I still do it. But people's brains don't think like ours. They just don't. And you have to train yourself to do that. Well, I was training 20 Title I facilitators who were coming out of the classroom as instructional coaches or teachers, and they were like, what in the world is this? I can do all of this. I cannot do this finance piece. The little baby steps. That's where we got into spreadsheets, right? That's where we said, okay, we have this strategy. What data do you have? Not what can you go out and what do you have? All right, let's look and see what that is. And begin to define that. And so this is just what we did. Okay? Just for funny. This was when I got there, this was the school presentation version of what we got. Oh, it's not gonna do it. Y'all can pull it up. Don't worry. Maybe I can. I just wanted to show you that it was birthday party all over the place. Anyway, it's okay. There's what I was dealing with, so maybe you can relate if you click on it. Okay, that's what we're doing right now. I moved it a little bit, and even this sample CNA, this one is like 8 pages long. Like the one just like a continuous. And
You mean it was like
Our school's nestled in a lovely community.
Yeah. But it sure didn't look good, right? And here's our report data. So that's where we were. So I kind of moved just a little bit. We sort of took stock. We started with a sample school planning template. And these are all linked in here, okay? And then I did a 2.0. What the 2.0 was is just headings. I didn't do anything else other than here are the things you have to put in so that they look the same. Mostly for Leslie so that it was easier for her to look at 20 plans and she could see that we had what we needed. So now we've got
appreciate.
Yeah, now we've got to the point where now we have some integration with our processes, and this is an overview of a landing page that we do in Greenville. You can do that in small districts, where you keep all the data in the same place, right? Some of you already did that. And then kind of a crosswalk document to help my facilitators understand what they were putting in this kind of workbook. So what I realized is before we can start talking about the formula for tracking your dollars spent, we have to like level set a few things, okay? Why is it not going?
because it's not on here.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
I don't know how to get out of this.
And I do. If anybody is doing something that you think is excellent so far, please interject and say, hey, we're doing this and this is what's working. This is just, look at that. Can I? Absolutely. This one right here. This is actually the GEMS template. Okay. That is straight from GEMS, and it has the things. And you'll notice when you look at the crosswalk document, basically explains each thing, each section that they're filling in, what positions they put under which reform strategy. I mean, it is. I literally walk them right to it and said, here's what you're looking for. So that's the GEMS template because when we go to, when they're all off for summer vacation, and we're putting it in.
Now look what you've done.
So, but you'll notice. When you get to it, the alignment to district processes, you'll see that landing page at the very top says ELA goal and that goal, and that is your strategic plan. Okay, so it has to be tied all the way back to that. Now this is. Has anybody ever tried to look at the accountability manual, like the appendices? You see all the stigmas, and you're like, what stigma? As my teenager would say. I don't know how to do all of that. So what I did was when I went to NFIPA, which is the National Federal Programs Conference last year, North Carolina was presenting on a ROI tool that they had already put in. They had already done the little formulas in Excel. I don't even know how they did it. It doesn't matter. They did it for me. And I stole it. Okay? But I stole it, which is why I don't care about giving y'all things, because we're all kind of it's not copyrighted.
It's called collaboration.
But honestly, this was their tool. And I matched it by the research. I went and looked, okay, I'm that kind of nerd. But this is what it was. And so it was easier for me to say to my facilitators last year, this is what this looks like. You're not going to do it yet, though. I just want you to kind of sit with it, right? Marinate on it, that sort of thing. And so this looks very familiar. I'm not going to go over that because Leslie's already done that. But this gives you an idea of where we started. So this year only, just this year, in December, I have 20 of these facilitators. I broke them into small groups and I said, all right, we're going to pull, and if y'all aren't using ChatGPT or Gemini,
It's my assistant.
We were talking about this for SCADA. We're going to do like using AI in federal programs because let me tell you something. It will help you tremendously, okay?
Just double check the work.
So, that's fine. Look, so what I did is said, I'm going to break them down. We'll pull all of the stuff. So, downloaded the Title I plan from Jim's. I threw it in the ChatGPT and said, find the top strategies and how many schools use them. And it did. It listed them right there. Class size reduction. 55% of your schools. I mean, there it was. I don't do anything else. So I sat down with them and I said, okay, I'm going to assign you 2 strategies in a small group of 4 that I want you to look at. These are things y'all do in your schools. And I want you to talk about what it looks like to have a high outcome. If you've got a reduced class size, what does it look like? Does it look like their benchmark exams from 1 to 2 are making progress? Does it look like that their class size behavior incidents are down? Okay, this is all stuff you put on your comprehensive needs assessment. So I had them sit there and talk about it. And then I said, what does it look like? And I'll go to the implementation fidelity. But this is what they came up with. They sat there and they just came up with it, talked about it. While this I could have done in ChatGPT, the buy-in that I got for them talking about it was important. Okay? Because they needed to define what the success looked like at their school. I'm not in the classroom at their schools. So if behavior incidents have gone down in 5th grade, that is something that is worthy to note for a class size reduction. Because if you can have more time on task, you're actually educating. All right, so that's okay. I wanted them to set that. So then we did behavior. These are just 2 people. Because I want you to know it's okay to do people. As long as you don't say, well, it's so-and-so and so-and-so. No, it's not about the person. It's about the strategy. What is the outcome of the strategy? So we were trying to bridge that gap. So what happens when your strategy doesn't actually do anything? Because y'all know those years, right? I can tell you the second year I was an assistant principal, that 8th grade class, we stood in the hallway and cheered as they left. Because there are some years, y'all. It doesn't matter what you do. It's going to work. It is not going to work, right? And when I tell you we clapped, and I still see them, they're great kids, but we were not going to get anything out of 8th grade that year. It just didn't work. There was just a lot, right? So maybe it's the implementation fidelity. Maybe we need to say, well, that year so-and-so was out, that teacher was on maternity leave, that teacher quit in the middle of the year, we had a long-term sub in there, and so those are the things when you implement a strategy that affect it, right? So you don't want to just say, oh, I'm going to run this formula. If it's just in the red, we got to get rid of that person. Or we got to get rid of that strategy, okay? It's a discussion point. It's part of the discussion because maybe you need to attend to the fact that when you have a teacher that goes out, which happens way more frequently these days, about mid-year where they say, peace, I can go and do something else for this level of stress, that you have a contingency plan in place at your school now. Like, what would you do if that happens again? Because we see how it negatively affected this one. Okay, so asking those questions. So I said, so now I want you to tell me, if you are implementing with high fidelity, what does that look like for instructional software? Well, that means we're getting required minutes in, right? We have a structure and a schedule where we're seeing everybody. We're reviewing the data at our PLC meetings or quarterly or whatever. That's what to implement the strategy with fidelity. Okay, so now you got not only your outcomes, but you got what it looks like to actually do the strategy. So that when you go to have the conversation of whether you keep it, whether you modify it, or whether you get rid of it, you actually have some conversation points and some data behind them. Okay? So in January we did this. I gave them a 90-day review. So we talked about expenditures. I pulled their expenditure report. I did put their big strategies, and I put how much money they had left. But I also put what are you going to do the rest of the year? Not only to spend the money, but track your investments. Okay? So then in February, I had them run that lovely thing that was already done for me, formula, that I could not tell them how I got it in there. And I wouldn't even try. I want you to run it on one thing. Okay? I let them pick whatever they wanted to do. So if they had, we'll pick on my IXL people, if they had IXL and they paid $10,000, they had to go in and they had to say, well, all of my fifth grade uses it, so that's 50 kids. Not that we ever have a class size that small, but 50 kids. And so if you put it in the formula, it will tell you how much dollar for dollar that strategy was on those kids. Then you get to go back to the stuff you did and say, well, do we feel like the outcome so far is high, medium, and low? You put it on the spreadsheet. What about our implementation? And then it figures it for you. And what's in a special population? Y'all have APSI funds. Maybe it's directed to students with disabilities. And you want to make sure there's a multiplier there to account for that. Again, I don't know this math, but I know it's well researched. Okay? And that's not really the point at this point. I can tell them it's well researched. I know exactly where it comes from. It is a conversation point. Okay? So we did that, and then of course this is their decision matrix. All right? This is where we are right now, just so you know. They still have only done one strategy in that formula. It is not something they have to do when they're planning for FY27 because they're not ready yet. Like you don't want to rush something like a math formula for a strategy if you are not sure how you're going to use it yet. Okay? And so what I want you to do right now is I want you to pull up in Hoover just because I'm afraid to touch anything technology related. In Hoover, we did this in February at the national conference. In Hoover, I put a document that says, here's what, so what, now what. Okay? This has got a lot more resources in it. This also gives you, it shows you the presentation I did with my facilitators in December, where it says click here for an example of how we defined it. Because if there's one caution that I would say to you, is make sure you define what academic return on investment in its textbook structure looks like, but also what it means to your district. Mm-hmm. What are we using it for? Get rid of everybody's feelings about measurement. Okay? It is a discussion point. So that presentation there, assuming that it comes up for you, I think I changed all the permissions. It gives you what we defined as a group, academic investment was, and then how we were going to measure, okay? How we did that. And all the links should be available for you to do. It even gives you an example of, I walked them through how to set those standards of outcome, high, medium, and low, and implementation. And that was just a good space for us to define that work. And then on down, it gives you, I think one of y'all said something about dipping your toe in. So I gave you 3 different levels. Maybe you are far beyond this level, and that's fantastic. I want to talk to you afterwards. Maybe you know your district's got a lot of good things going on, but they feel like they're kind of grounded in something, which would hopefully is a strategic plan. But then there's kind of federal programs department is doing this, and academics department is doing this, and the accountability department is doing this. And if you happen to be academics, accountability, and federal programs, you're trying to juggle all of it at the same time. Okay? And I have been in this role long enough to know it's sometimes hard for a federal programs person to get a seat at the table to show them how it connects. Okay? So please understand for the first 2 years, I was doing this behind the scenes because I couldn't figure out where to put my foot in yet. Right? Because that's like a machine in Greenville. I would have known how to do it in Lawrence. But I started doing it behind the scenes so that when they started pulling me into the conversation about what we want to use our Title I funds on, or we did this in Title IV, I could actually show them data. It was a little bit, it made me feel better about all the spreadsheets I've been keeping on myself. Okay? So you're not doing it for naught. You got to do it for your comprehensive needs assessment anyway. You got to do it for making sure you are measuring your outcomes, your inputs, and all that mess in the, what is that thing called, Jennifer and Ford?
Logic model.
Logic model.
That thing.
Because she was the one that she started the whole logic model thing. But making sure that, so this is an easy way for you to dip your toe in, so if you want to start small, thinking about collaboration, thinking about at this point, you can go back next week and as you're working through this, ask them the one question. Well, if we spend this amount, what return or what outcomes do you want to get? They don't have to give anything like, but you at least are starting the conversation, right? So if you're not there, it's a great place to start, and you can do that next week when you go back to your districts. Unless you got spring break in a couple weeks, and I'll have you wait till after. Okay. And then right there, the school planning goals. Those of you who have multiple Title I schools or multiple ACS high schools, those are impact statements, or they're basically fill in the blanks. They're sentence stems for common strategies in Title I. And I gave that to my facilitators and said, I would rather you go out and find the data and then fill in the blank. Okay? So that it goes on your comprehensive needs assessment, the last heading. I told you all I did was put a heading on there. And I said, you may not request anything out of your Title I funds without it having the reform strategy or whatever sentence stem you decided. You have to account for every last one of them. And it did take a whole lot more than they were doing, but I'm telling you, it's a slow roll. So don't do all of it at once. That's a small step. Maybe you're a little further along and you want to do some formalizing of your next steps. Maybe you want to do some fidelity checks. Even in Greenville, I have to say, you're asking for what position in Title I next year? I have done some drive-bys where I just step in and say, oh, what's your name? What's your position? Okay, and get an idea of if that person's in the front office being the bookkeeper or the receptionist, but you want to use them as a parent involvement coordinator. Because then I can say, let me see your impact statements on what you think you're going to get out of it. Okay? Not like that. Y'all know I'm talking to a room of federal programs, but you got to be nice with them now. It helps you with the conversation. I mean, something.
And a break, guys.
I try to be nice. But I go with the facts, right? I go with it and answer the questions. Maybe you want to co-create some agencies. Maybe you've got some people in your department that you can do it. Okay? Maybe you have facilitators. Maybe you don't. Maybe you can talk to your district about, could we do this with some of our Title I principals in the summer virtually, or could I get them for like an hour to talk about outcomes? Let me pull all of the strategies out. I have to do some work on the front end. Let me pull all the strategies they've been using for a while. Okay, let them set some outcome measures. And then I've given you some, like if you really want to just throw the towel in and start changing a bunch of things, if that's where you are, I've given you a little bit. It says GCS general based on most used strategies. That's our strategy set. Okay, those are our most used strategies. And then what my facilitators documented as a low, medium, and high outcome and a low, medium, and high implementation. So you already got somewhere to start. Go ahead and just hand it to them and say, this is from another district. Look over this and see if that looks right for our district or your school. And cross out with a red pen and update. Don't reinvent the wheel. Just use it. Okay? And then I gave you that action matrix. And when we do Title I plans this year, it's not that I'm going to make them say, you know, this is not getting returned, so you got to get rid of it. I'm going to say, you've been doing this strategy for 5 years. Show me your outcomes. What will it take for us not to have this same conversation next year? Where I can say, maybe you don't need to do that again. Because if we know anything in federal funds right now, is that this is the way the money is right now, on a good day. Some days it does this. But your funding is stagnant. Thank God it's still there. Okay, so let's find the beauty in that. But if you have people in your plans, salaries, insurance, fringe, even for the same amount of people, that doesn't work. So you really are going to have to start asking those hard questions like, is this who we need, or maybe we need to As a matter of fact, I spent all morning trying to restructure 3 things that we already have in Title I. Basic same job functions, but for efficiency and effectiveness, our comprehensive needs assessment will say we change these to X, Y, and Z to serve what we need to serve. Okay? And so just knowing that, being able to speak into that when you do get at the table, being able to say, I don't know, but let me get back to you, and sending that information to them. I will tell you, it's taken me 4 full years to look at, because there's now academic return on investment software. Y'all seen that? It seems like that is out of your reach because the more you're trying to just find what you got in the funds. But I am now looking at it. It's taken me that long to convince somebody in accountability to let me pilot. We love to pilot something. We love to pilot something. But I'm going to take a subset of my Title I schools, and I'm not going to let the facilitators have it. I'm going to keep it all here, and I'm going to try to align the data sets and just see what it does. Because the worst thing for me to do is to say, here, put it in this system and let it spit it back out to you without me understanding, and then get like a red or a yellow that says you're not doing something right, and me not be able to explain how it got it. So I'm going to pilot it with 2 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and high school, and just look what it does. Okay? And yes, I'm piloting it out of Title I. Please approve it. Is this with FY27 funds?
I need your justification to be strong.
It's going to be very strong. But it may not be worth the money that we put into it, but it may be. Especially for some of your smaller districts where everybody's wearing 18 bazillion hats. Do a little tiny study in your LEA set aside if you can. Just to see what would happen. Because I will tell you one thing about this formula. It is labor intensive to put all that stuff in there. And we have 20 Title I schools, 14 school improvement schools, and there are 3 in my office, and I'm one of them. Okay? And so I don't like to just send things to them and let them just fill in boxes. They need to be out in the building. We fill it in for them. So we take a lot of time to give them some stuff from the front end. But I think that also convinced the people in my district office that we were ready for something that was a little bit more efficient for our schools. Okay? Maybe you can. If you have 2 Title I schools, doggone, you probably can put it in there. Okay? And be done with it. But if you've got a lot, or you've got a lot of school improvement schools or something like that, then it's a little different. So if you see something you have a question about, if you can't get access to it, y'all just let me know. If you have something like, hey, we're doing this, did y'all do anything like this? Please email me. I'm an open book because we have to struggle enough with resources. We don't have enough money to buy them anyway. Okay? So I'm happy to share anything that we've done to get us to this point. And we are not perfect and are far from it. But we are at least headed in the right direction so that when I do get in front of people, I can say, yeah, we've done that strategy for X, Y, and Z. Here's the return. What would you like to look at? Now I'm a little bit more part of the budget discussions because they see the value of that supplemental fund on top of what they're already doing. So questions, ideas you want to share with your colleagues?
I will say the great thing about our team is that we have a team that's stable right now, and so your program manager is your program manager, and so some of us have read your plans for years, and so when we see things that are the same thing every year, we ask the questions, and if you're like grabbing the data and return on investment, then your justification is tight for us to be like, okay, got it.
What the U.S. Department of Ed does. It's not going to matter if it changes over to the Department of Labor and you got to like document it a little bit different. You already have your systems in place. All you got to do is copy and paste it in there.
That's right.
So it really does help to get things to a point where you're just sort of being very intentional about the cycle of it. And it may seem overwhelming if you have a lot of irons that you need to fix. Just start somewhere. Just start asking a question. Get on the Senate stems and say, here, all you got to do is fill it in for like 3 of your strategies next year. Not all of them. Start somewhere. Okay. Questions? Okay. Thank y'all for letting me just like mess everything up.
No, thank you for joining us today.
I'm trying to decide if federal funds could buy another USC.
But I'll be up
What?
here if y'all need anything. Y'all let me know.
Oh, thank you. Well, right. The presentation. I'm sure it's like only like $5.
That is in, I think it's in that. Please, I have de-gringled everything. So you are welcome to, if you just take, if it's a Google Doc, just make a copy of it because I likely won't give you permission for it. But just make a copy of it and make it your own and change it. Yeah, I don't care.